Picture this. You're a young boy, barely old enough to know the meaning of freedom, yet you find yourself in a world where survival is the only thing that matters. A place where hope flickers like a candle in the dark, and every moment is a battle between life and death. This is the world of Moshe Kessler, the boy from Block 66. Today, you're going to journey through a story of unthinkable hardship, resilience, and an unyielding will to survive. If you want to dive deeper into incredible stories like this and elevate your understanding, make sure to subscribe to Elevate Genius for more powerful journeys like Moshe's. The Boy from Block 66 by Limor Regev isn't just a recount of World War II. It's a tale that pulls you straight into the heart of the Holocaust, giving you a glimpse through the eyes of a child. This is a story of trauma, of loss, but also of survival, hope, and the unbreakable human spirit. As we dive deeper into the life of Moshe, a boy who lived through some of the darkest days in history, we'll see that his strength wasn't just in surviving, it was in living with purpose, remembering those who didn't make it, and speaking for those who can no longer speak for themselves. Before the storm of war and hatred took hold, Moshe Kessler was just like any other young boy. Growing up in Hungary, he was surrounded by the comforts of family, community, and childhood innocence. He played with friends, went to school, and had no reason to expect that his world would soon be shattered. But the rise of Nazi influence turned everything upside down, tearing his peaceful life apart. The Nazis began their systematic oppression of Jews in Hungary, stripping them of basic rights and pushing them into overcrowded ghettos. Can you imagine waking up one day and finding your world turned upside down? The streets, once filled with laughter, were now suffocating with fear. Moshe's family, like many others, was forced to give up their belongings, their homes, and their dignity, all at once. The sounds of soldiers' boots echoing in the streets, the whispers of terror in the air, and the knowing look between strangers, all of this became Moshe's new reality. The story takes a darker turn as Moshe and his family are deported to the notorious Buchenwald concentration camp. Imagine being a young boy herded like cattle, knowing that your family's fate is uncertain. The journey was brutal. Moshe, his parents, and other Jews from Hungary were packed into freight cars like animals, traveling for days with little food, water, or air. The smell of fear and despair filled every inch of the cramped space. When they finally arrived at Buchenwald, the horror didn't stop. The barracks were overcrowded, the conditions inhumane. But the most chilling thing was the realization that the camp wasn't just a place of confinement, it was a place of death. Moshe was separated from his family, and what little hope he had was crushed under the weight of seeing so many people broken by years of suffering. But amidst this overwhelming darkness, Moshe found an unexpected source of survival. Block 66. Known as the Children's Block, it was meant to be a shelter for the youngest prisoners, those too young to be worked to death. But even here, safety was an illusion. The children were often starved, abused, and treated as expendable. However, there was a small group of older prisoners who decided to take matters into their own hands. They formed an underground network, risking their lives to protect the children like Moshe. They shared food whenever they could, whispered words of encouragement, and even provided what little comfort they could in a place where compassion was scarce. Moshe found solace in these small acts of humanity. He formed bonds with other boys who, like him, were struggling to survive. Together, they played games to distract themselves from the grim reality, and they shared stories of better times. Times when life wasn't about surviving but living. But it wasn't just the physical hardships that wore Moshe down. It was the mental battle. Imagine being a child in a place where hope seemed like a distant memory. Moshe often found himself reflecting on his family, the life he had before, and the memories that still kept him going. These memories, fragile as they were, became his anchor. He fought to hold on to his identity, knowing that if he lost it, he would be lost forever. In the silence of the camp, Moshe often heard whispers of hope. A fellow prisoner would tell him about liberation, about the possibility of freedom, but those whispers seemed as far away as the stars. Yet Moshe never gave up. He held on to those fleeting moments of connection, those small victories in the face of adversity. As the war came to an end, Moshe's freedom arrived, but it was not the triumphant moment he had imagined. The American soldiers who liberated Buchenwald were met with the haunting sight of emaciated prisoners, their faces hollow from years of torment. Moshe, though free, was a shadow of the boy he once was. He couldn't understand what freedom meant. How could he, when the world he once knew was gone? Regev's writing captures this disorientation perfectly. Moshe wandered through the post-war world, trying to make sense of what had happened to him. He was no longer the boy he had been. He was a survivor, but that word meant something different now. It wasn't just about living. It was about carrying the weight of loss, of grief, and of remembering those who had not made it. After liberation, Moshe's journey didn't end. Survivors like him faced the daunting task of rebuilding their lives in a world that seemed indifferent to their suffering. Moshe navigated through orphanages, displacement camps, and the loneliness of trying to find a place in a world that had been reshaped by war. But even in these difficult times, there were moments of hope. Moshe found kindness in the most unexpected places. Strangers offered him food, shelter, and a kind word. Fellow survivors became a new kind of family, a family bound not by blood, but by shared suffering and resilience. These small acts of kindness gave him the strength to keep moving forward, to find his place in a world that seemed so alien to him. Despite the trauma and loss, Moshe's story is ultimately one of strength. He didn't just survive, he thrived. Moshe became a voice for the voiceless, speaking out about the horrors he had endured. He dedicated his life to ensuring that the atrocities of the Holocaust would never be forgotten. The final chapters of The Boy from Block 66 showcase Moshe's journey of healing. He found work, built a family, and became an advocate for remembrance. He shared his story with schools, communities, and anyone who would listen, ensuring that the lessons of history would never fade away. Moshe's story is a testament to the human spirit. It's a reminder that even in the darkest times, there is a light that can never be extinguished. Moshe Kessler lived to tell his story, not just for himself, but for those who did not survive, for the millions who suffered, and for the world that must never forget. And that's the most powerful lesson from his life. Never forget. We must honor the past so that we can build a future where such horrors are never repeated. Moshe's resilience teaches us that no matter the odds, the human spirit can endure, and that light will always find a way to shine, even through the darkest of times. What part of Moshe's story touched you the most? Let us know in the comments below. And most importantly, in everything you do, remember to learn, motivate, and inspire.